Chapter 17. Chocolat. How I hated that man who came each day and took away the cartridges and brought us our slop. But then one day, he didn't come. Or the next day. Now that he wasn't showing up, I was aware of his absence. He was our only link to the outside. We had made all the cartridges that we could, but we ran out of gunpowder and cylinders. There were so many cartridges that they filled the box, and we had to stack the overflow on the table, but they kept rolling off. We had no food. My body had become used to living on our meager diet, but to survive on nothing was not possible. Each day, every day, had been punctuated with the piece of sawdust bread and that bowl of turnip soup. Even with that food, my arms and legs had turned to sticks and my teeth had loosened. Now my feet stank from their open wounds, and my knees buckled when I tried to stand. I lay on my lice-infested mat and waited to die, hoping that somehow my sister would live. I lost all track of time. The floor shook. Bits of stone crumbled from the earthen wall and hit me on the cheek. A bomb? Was this how I would finally die? I turned my face to the wall and closed my eyes. A loud pounding on the door. I pushed myself up to a sitting position. The wood cracked. People around me roused and stumbled to their feet. Someone pulled on my arm, and I got up too, although the pressure of the cold stone floor on the sores of my feet were nearly unbearable. We clustered at the back of the room, our arms wrapped around each other so the weakest wouldn't fall, huddled in fear. Bang! 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 Soon the door was nothing but splinters, with one final loud smash of a booted foot hitting the wood. What was left of the door fell away. A gush of fresh air brushed against my face. I breathed in the incredible sweetness. It had been so long since I had smelled fresh air. A soldier stepped through the splinters of wood. But he wasn't a Nazi. He had no armband where the swastika should have been, and his helmet was bowl-shaped, not curved out at the edges. He blinked a few times as if he couldn't quite comprehend who or what we were. He reached for his pocket. Was there a gun in there? But no. He took out a handkerchief and held it to his face. That embarrassed me. I knew we stank. Would he think we were pigs like the Nazis did? He said something in a language that I didn't understand, but a rheumy-eyed prisoner with rags on his feet perked up at the words. He answered in the same language, then translated for us. He's an American soldier. The Nazis were losing on all fronts. He will give us food, and he will get us medical treatment. I tried cheering, but I was so weak that it came out like a croak of a frog. I could feel my eyes tickling with the threat of tears, but I was too thirsty to weep. Was it really over? Could I now find my sister and go home? The soldier asked another question, and the prisoner translated for us. He wants to know how many of us can walk out and how many need to be carried. He can get stretchers. We were all weak and hungry, and every one of us had trouble standing, but we decided as a group that we would walk out with our dignity. It was our victory, after all. We looped our arms around each other and stepped out of the horrible building and into the light. The sunlight felt like a knife to my tender eyes. I covered my face with my hands so just a bit of the sun could shine through. I felt a warm hand on my shoulder as I listened to a gentle murmuring in that strange language. The voice guided me somewhere, and I followed him without hesitation. Everything about his manner showed that he considered me human, equal to him. I didn't have to understand the words to know that I could trust him. Soon I found myself sitting on a bench, and when I could finally take my hands away from my face, I saw that the soldier was sitting beside me, watching me with concern. He had a metal flask. Drink. He tipped it up to his own mouth to demonstrate, then handed it to me. I lifted it gingerly to my parched lips and felt the cool, clean water moisten my swollen tongue. I swallowed, nearly choking, then sipped some more. It tasted so good. The soldier rooted around in his pocket of his trousers and pulled out a small metallic packet. He set it on my open palm. "Eat," he said, motioning with his hands and pointing to his mouth. "Chocolate." "Chocolate?" I knew that word. I looked down at the small package. It did not look like what I knew as chocolate. He took it from me and bit into a corner of the metal, ripping off a bit of the package and opening it up. He shook out a small brown square and handed it back to me. I held it to my nose and sniffed. It smelled heavenly. It was nothing like the sweet from the Nazi brown sister. Could it really be chocolate? I had only tasted it once as a very young child, but this scent brought the memory back. I tried to bite into it, but it was too firm for my wobbly teeth. The soldier took it from me again and broke off a small corner. I put a bit in my mouth and held it on my tongue. An explosion of flavor filled my mouth as that small morsel of chocolate slowly dissolved. I closed my eyes and savored it. I wanted to eat more, but the soldier shook his head. He slipped the chocolate back into its metallic package and placed it in my palm, folding my fingers around it. I understood that he was giving it to me, but didn't want me to eat it all at once. I slipped it into my pocket. My eyes had gradually adjusted to the light, so I took a look around me. The bench where I sat was on that cobblestone street of quaint cottages. Army trucks with a white star emblazoned on the wood idled all along it. There was even a tank. American soldiers, all looking impossibly tall, with clean hair and all their teeth, were busy setting up tents and chatting in clusters. I looked across the road and noticed the blue shuttered cottage. That same ruddy-cheeked woman stared out through her lace curtain. Her eyes darted fearfully from me to the soldier at my side. The sight of her made me unbearably angry. All this time we had been starving, locked up mere steps from her house. Had she thought of us once? And now she was afraid? The soldier followed my gaze. He stood up and motioned for me to come with him. He held my elbow as we walked to that house, and he banged on the door. The woman disappeared from the window, but she didn't answer. He banged again. No response. He kicked it hard with his boot, and the door flew open. We stepped inside. A portrait of Hitler over the fireplace was draped with a black ribbon. Underneath, a picture of a young man in uniform, a black ribbon of mourning around it as well. Threadbare furniture, meticulously clean. The woman cowered in the archway between the living room and her kitchen, her eyes cast down. The soldier gestured for me to come in and look around. But somehow, now that we were face to face, I couldn't bear to hate that woman. Was that a picture of her son? Had he died fighting for Hitler? Was Hitler now dead as well? Then the woman met my eyes and said in German, "Take what you want." I followed her into the kitchen. She opened up one cupboard after another, showing me how little she had. Mostly jars of pickled vegetables. Her most precious item was a stale loaf of dark bread, and my mouth watered at the sight of it. But how could I take it from this woman who had so little? She cut off a thick slice and handed it to me. I thanked her in German and held it to my face, breathing in the wonderful aroma of yeast and rye. How long had it been since I had a piece of bread that was not made of sawdust? I longed to eat it, but my stomach was still rolling from that tiny piece of rich chocolate. Now that I finally had food, I couldn't eat it. I put the slice of bread in my pocket, feeling more secure just knowing it was there. When we walked out of her house, I saw that the rest of the soldiers had bashed open other houses. Mostly what the slaves carried out were bits of food, like a small wedge of cheese or a jar of pickled herring. But some brought out looted treasure that Nazi soldiers at the front must have sent home to their families. The man who had translated for the American soldier cradled a large wooden icon of the Madonna in his arms. He was so weak that it took all his strength to hold on to it, but I could see the determination on his face. A soldier stepped in to help him with it. The sight of the plundered painting made me want to cry. It looked so much like the ancient icon that had been stolen from my blue-painted church back home. I watched as a soldier found the man a blanket to wrap the icon in. They loaded it carefully into the back of an army jeep. I walked over to the man and silently stood beside him as he watched the jeep drive away. "Where are they taking it?" I asked. "There is a Ukrainian Catholic priest in a refugee camp nearby who is building a temporary church for us," he said. "The icon is a start." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a piece of bread. I tore it in half and gave one piece to him. He held it to his lips, but did not eat.